Nippertown, that Fuzz and Rock show. We got something special for you guys today. Um, Black Sabbitch is going to be headlining Empire Underground May 6th with special guest Battle Axe. We are lucky to be joined today by none other than Angie Scarpa from Black Sabbath. Angie, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going?
Awesome to see you. Now, you
You
are
too.
on the opposite coast of us. You're on the West Coast, joining us from the West Coast today.
That's right. It's 12 noon here in Los
So
Angeles.
we're 3 hours ahead. So if you call me back about 10 o'clock tonight, it'll be 7 o'clock your time. I'll give
Yeah,
you the New York lottery numbers and we can all make a
perfect.
lot of money. How's that?
Excellent.
So let's get right into it because I have a ton of stuff to talk to you about. You guys play this area quite a bit. And when you do, I've seen you guys, I want to say twice now, but one for
Okay.
sure that I can actually remember. But I know when I went there, I had an expectation, and you're probably going to yell at me for that. But I was like, I have to check this out because, I mean, obviously, growing up, Black Sabbath, one of my favorite bands of all time. And so I'm like, all right, I got to see what this is about. I was absolutely floored by just the energy coming off the stage from you guys and your attention to details in the songs and blew me away. So that being said, um, you guys are, and I don't have my glasses, so I have to apologize if I kind of hold stuff up because trying to get, I'm trying to get into a groove here with my
Well,
questions. So
I'm wearing my glasses, so you might have to reciprocate.
I left them in the other studio upstairs.
Okay.
I got sidetracked by my neighbor's yard work. So, but we'll get through it for sure. So now the rest of the band is, and I'm going to screw up her last name, Melanie. Help me out.
Maki Evie.
Okay, and that's
It
the
means
bass
sharp.
player.
It means sharp eyes in Hawaiian.
I can't, I was looking at it, I'm like, oh, I'm never
Maka
gonna get that.
Evie.
There's
Yeah.
no way.
Yeah.
So Emily Burton's on the guitar and Alice Austin is on the vocals. You, of course, keeping the time back there on the drums.
Hmm.
Um, let's talk about you guys for a little bit. Now, is this the original lineup of the band that you guys had, or
No. So I founded the band with Melanie Maki Evie, Sharp Eyes, which I like to call her, uh, 10 years ago, and basically out of a love. So Sabbath is like my favorite band of all time,
Mhm.
and when I was a little kid, when I first started playing the drums, I learned how to play drums by playing to those records, and so never did anything in like the world of kind of playing covers or anything, made records, was in a lot of bands, did a lot of touring. And Melanie and I were actually in a band in the 90s and early 2000s called The Art of Safecracking in Los Angeles, which was kind of a post-punk, kind of proggy hardcore band like the Mars Volta, like at the drive-in kind of sounding thing.
Mhm.
And one day, I met Emily Burton, who is our guitar player, and she's also in the band Fireball Ministry. I don't know if you know them, but she and I met when we both sat in playing in this all-female Leonard Skinner band, and we played a couple shows with them, and we became fast friends. And then when I had this notion, like you know, this is fun, kind of like trying to really figure out some pretty difficult music. People, whatever you think
Sure.
about Skinner, like the drum parts are pretty damn good. So I said, why, to a couple friends, why don't we like get together in a room and play some Sabbath, and one by one, the people who I kind of did those original jams with kind of fell off, and we replaced each member with like someone who was more appropriate to the situation. So and Melanie is the only one who is still in the band with me. So yeah, that was a decade ago. But Alice and Emily have been in the band for a number of years now
Mhm.
already. So we've been playing together for quite some time.
So that was 10 years. So you guys just decided that it was just gonna be all Sabbath. Like, is that
You know what? Honestly, we thought of the name, and I thought the name was amazing. And I thought, like, if you tell someone Black Sabbitch is playing, they immediately know what it is.
Oh,
They
yeah,
know it's
100%.
they know it's women and they know it's Sabbath, you
Yeah.
know? They don't even have to have heard of the band, and, so we booked a show at a club here in LA, and our first show was packed, and after that, it just kinda just started blowing up, and like you said, you know, we do have a very I have a very, I don't know what I have a very strong filter. I'm a huge Sabbath fan, so if I went to see a show and people were playing Sabbath and it didn't swing or it didn't sound like a real true 70s rock concert, I wouldn't be into it. So I've always been very adamant about like we can't do this unless this is right, and I think people see that in us and have become fans of not just the us as what people would call a tribute band, even though we never use those words, but people are fans of our band. Not just coming to see Black Sabbath music, but they come to see us.
Sure.
And so I think that's why it kind of took off so quickly and blew up, as much as it did.
Well, as far as and that was one of the questions I had was that do people generally categorize you as a tribute band or a cover band? But I think that there's a third thing in there where it's like it's neither. It's Black Sabbath because you guys kind of like take it and make it your own and give it
Right.
that sound to it, which is great. So do you guys get called a tribute or cover band a lot, or does it like
Um,
your own
not
entity?
as much not as much as you would think. I mean, obviously, when we're playing shows, certain places might advertise it that way, but for the most part, when we're touring, the bands that would open for us are going to be, original bands that are kind of in the same vein, like doomy sounding, rock bands, 70s sounding rock bands. Once in a while we'll play with another band that does someone else's material, but they're usually kind of in the upper tier of those bands that kind of
Mhm.
fall into the same, category as us, people who are doing things that are, more interesting than just kind of like a route run through of songs that they learned. Um, Usually the bands that we play, if we're opening for somebody, it's usually someone big. Like, we played at Cal Jam with Foo Fighters and Iggy Pop. We're one of the headliners at Maryland Doomfest this year. We played
Oh,
Psycho
wow.
Vegas this past year. So there was no other tribute band at Psycho Las Vegas. There was no other tribute band at Cal Jam. Yeah,
Right.
so we do run up against that sometimes, and I don't. And let me get something straight. I don't have a problem with tribute bands. It's just that we don't generally run in that circle. You
Right.
know,
Sure.
the venues we play in don't usually host a lot of tribute bands. Usually your national and international touring bands are coming through the same venues that we're playing when we're on our
Mhm.
tours.
Now, do you guys have to get like special permissions from the band to do, or is it just kind of a
Well, I mean, we they know about us. The official Black Sabbath and Ozfest and Ozzy Osbourne um, pages on social media are always like liking and sharing our stuff.
oh, that's cool.
Sharon and Ozzy asked us to open a show for them at one point. I'm not Tony, Geezer and Bill were at one of our shows. Bill and I have been in contact a little bit. So um, they know about us, and no one's ever, you know, said don't do it. I mean, they're fans,
Right, that's great.
which is
That's
kind of mind blowing to like, play a show and know that Bill Ward, is watching,
yeah,
you
right.
know, um, when you're me. That's for sure. Yeah.
Now does that get you rattled when Billboard's watching, or you just kinda like
Um, You know, I mean, not anymore. It doesn't get me any more rattled than anyone watching, I think, at this point. Like what's funny is when we played Psycho Las Vegas last year, we played at 11 p.m. on the Saturday night. So we're like the headlining slot and
mhm,
Danzig had played just before us in another room. And, all these other huge bands were playing. And everyone who was leaving those shows had to walk through the hall that we were playing in and right past where we're playing. And I said to the other girls, I'm like, that every person who's playing at this festival has been in a Sabbath cover band at some point in their life when they were kids, you
Right.
know, and like they're all going to be standing there going, "What's up with these chicks?" You know, and but you do with it what you will. Generally, when we get on stage, as soon as we start playing, people are always on our side because they can tell that we're true believers.
The real deal, that's for sure. So you guys are playing Empire Underground here in Albany locally, um, on the 6th of May. Yes, on the 6th of May. And you guys have a band opening for you. Their name is Battle Axe. Another bunch of really cool ladies, and I've interviewed them on the show. They're full of energy. You guys are gonna have a lot of fun with them.
Oh, good.
They're awesome. They're very cool
I
chicks.
figured. I mean, see, that's another name that I think when you immediately hear it, you're like, "This must be a chicks metal band," like Battle
And they
Axe.
have the 3 X's on the end,
Yeah,
AXX,
yeah,
you know,
totally.
and it's
Yeah.
just and they're great musicians, they're great people, but they're definitely full of energy. You guys are gonna have a lot of fun. It's gonna be a great show. I can't wait.
Awesome.
So now speaking of your shows, and this kinda came up, I saw it the other day. Who does you guys' gig posters?
Um, I do a lot of them. Emily does a lot of them. Melanie does a lot of them. Historically, I did all the early ones for a long
Mhm,
time. I didn't generally create most of the art. We use other people's art. Sometimes people make art for us.
mhm.
Emily has made some original art for our posters, or we have some artists who like to make stuff for us. But as far as putting them together, I kind of started with this notion of like this, like a 70s t-shirt, that kind of very horror influenced looking stuff that I would see when I was a little kid on a Black Sabbath t-shirt, but not necessarily one that they would have sold, but one that I would have bought like at a flea market. You
Sure,
know what I
yeah.
mean? Like or out in the street outside of a show. That kind of stuff.
They have the feel of that kinda like that 70s, um, the 70s back in the day venue posters like you'd see in LA and in New York and all that stuff, but it has that feel of like that old school feel of posters. I was looking at a bunch of them online and I'm like, you
Yeah.
know what? That's awesome. So I had to.
Yeah, we've definitely used a few, like a more obscure Sabbath venue posters that I've found online and kind of, you know, um, modified them, to our name and whatever.
Mhm,
So yeah, but you're right on with that. It's like, a 70s venue poster or a 70s t-shirt.
definitely totally cool.
We're definitely a very 70s influenced
I
people.
like it. There's definitely
Yeah,
nothing wrong with that for sure.
yeah, yeah.
So now you guys are starting your US tour April 16th out in Cali,
Yeah,
and then you're making your way this way.
yeah,
You guys have a few dates on the West Coast, and you're making your way up here. And you guys also have a UK tour, September,
yeah.
October, something.
Yeah, that UK tour has been postponed twice because of COVID. But now I mean, it feels like it's going to happen this year. So yeah, we're going in September and October to the UK.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So now let's compare audiences, and this is usually a question. I get a varied bunch of answers on this, so I want your take on this. So now, there U.S. audiences and UK audiences. Do you notice a difference in the audiences from the US to the UK?
Personally, like when I've toured in the UK or in Europe, I mean, when you're on stage, not really. I mean, rock fans are rock fans.
Mhm.
You know, I do find that people tend to be super friendly with us wherever we go. I mean, the only places where and this is completely like almost I'm almost being silly here, but when you play certain cities like in New York City, in LA, you definitely have a couple of minutes of, like, hmm, what's happening here? Like you gotta kind
Right.
of convince folks,
Mhm.
but that usually goes away within a minute. I mean, there's definitely, I think maybe we face a little more of that being women, although I do see a lot less of that now than I did, say, a decade ago when I was out playing shows. You know, I think that in general, people are much more used to seeing a band full of women and not even thinking, you know, anything about it. I made a joke the other day to a friend of mine, like, like what's the deal with all these all male bands I keep seeing, or male fronted, like
Right.
those terms, like female fronted. It's like, or all male band, like, all female band. People are like, you have an all female band. I'm like, well, yeah, because those are my friends, and that's who I played music with, and so we formed a band, just like most dudes do.
Right.
They're friends with dudes, and they form a band with their friends. So it's a kind of a funny thing, but but for the most part, our audiences seem to be like extremely supportive, no matter where we're playing. Yeah.
Mhm. No, that was, it's funny that you mentioned that because I was kind of going to dip into that real quick. But so when you guys first started the band, were you guys met with that kind of criticism? Like, all right, let's see what
Um,
these girls can do. And
Less so from the audience and more so from like sound guys and people that run venues and stuff like that.
okay,
I mean,
all right,
I also work like in production a lot in LA, and I directed a live show and a series of videos for a radio station. And I don't see that much anymore. But like a decade ago, I'd fly into a place to direct a show, and people would like, these older guys who've been working at an old venue forever, they're like telling us, how to, what, oh, here's how you should set your amp for this room, or here, as if we've like never, like never played our own equipment before, they would never say that to you if you showed up, and they would never tell you what volume to put your amp at. And it's just such a weird thing, especially to say to a bunch of women who like literally are on a tour, like
right, right,
tonight, tonight is the 19th show that I played in, this month, and you're telling me how to set up my drums,
right.
but that, again, that's not really happening that much anymore. Maybe that's because we've been around a while and we're headlining usually, so people don't have that to say to us. But I think it's more that that society has shifted for the better, away from that kind of sexism.
Yeah, it used to be the whole the boys club thing, and I think women have made huge strides in proving them wrong. And it to me, a musician is a musician, and
Right.
if you're gonna do it. And there's a lot of women that can play stuff better than men. Honestly, I mean, it's just they're musicians. Doesn't matter
Right.
if they're women. You know what I mean?
For
But
sure.
well, I'm glad so it's not still happening. That's a great thing. Now, how did you deal with that? Were you kind of like, did it piss you off? Was it like, were you just kind of like, whatever,
um
I'll show you on the stage, and
Well, for the most part, yeah, we just let the music do the talking. We just, the minute we generally start sound checking, people are like, okay, like they know what they're doing. You know, so and all four of us are a little bit. We have a little bit of that, road stare, like, what I mean? Like you can, you're like, whatever, where's the green room? Like, we're just tired and we just
right,
drove all
yeah,
day, and no, I don't really care. Like I just want to get on stage and play, and I don't really, or like you do the old trick of like, you go, sure, yeah, fine, and you pretend you're turning it down, then you just turn it right back up,
turn right back up.
or you tell them you're doing what they want, and then you just do what you're gonna do, you know. Because I mean, I think as a woman also, you learn that early in life, to just kind of like not get yourself all crazy about stuff like that, because if you do, you're going to spend your whole day being angry. you know
Yeah. So now we talked about you and Bill Ward are kind of in contact with each other now. What about some of the other Sabbath members? Have you guys met them? And
I've met all of them, yeah. Either backstage at their shows, or what we like I said, we did a show out here. Shepard Fairey, you know who he is, the
Mhm.
Obey, Andre Giant, has a posse. He's a huge Sabbath fan, and he did a show, an art show called Never Say Die, where he did a lot of his original stuff, and there was also like a lot of Sabbath ephemera, like real gig posters, or one of Bill Ward's drum heads, and gear. And they did that for the 50th anniversary of Sabbath. So I guess that was 2019, I guess that was. And
Yeah.
and and we played it. So Geezer and Bill were there.
Oh, that's cool.
And that was a pretty awesome experience. Yeah. So I mean, it's great talking to Bill, because when we talk, we basically don't talk about metal. We talk about swing drummers, like how we're both into, people like Gene Krupa and stuff like that,
Mhm.
and it's nice to have that, because my thing about Sabbath was always like, they're not a metal band, they're kind of a acid rock jazz band who happened to invent heavy music. But the way Bill swings is something that most people don't infuse in their music when they say they're influenced by Black Sabbath,
Right.
you know. And I think that's a generational thing. I think that people, instead of listening to who Sabbath listened to, they listened to Sabbath, and or the later incarnations of Sabbath
Mhm.
in the 80s, which kind of lose that 70s vibe. So for us, like when we try to, like when you were saying before, what we do when we play is not so much try to capture what the record sounded like, but capture what those shows felt like in like 71, 72, 73. We're very into that, sound of what Sabbath sounded like in the early 70s,
I always
and
I I
oh,
always thought
go
that
ahead.
Bill Ward had octopus arms.
Yeah.
He's just all over the place. It's like, what are you doing? How are you doing that?
And he's so unlike anyone else. He's the way he plays orchestration as opposed to playing with the bass player, the way he's kind of playing to the guitar player and to the riffs and almost to the melody lines of the vocals. And it's weird because when I, like I said, I grew up learning how to play to those records, and so it's kind of in me. Like I play like that even when I don't play Sabbath, and so it was a very natural fit for me to like start a Sabbath band, because I
Mhm.
I and then the band in my wake kind of fall into that thing of like the time is a little elastic, and all of that feeling that they had, which when I hear from people who tell me that back to me, it makes me the happiest I am in my life, to know that we're getting to provide that for people.
You guys now, are you guys are strictly a live band? You don't record, right?
I mean, we've made some recordings, but mostly of live stuff.
Yep.
There's a bunch of videos of us out there that have some really good soundboard recordings
Mhm.
on them. But no, we haven't made, you know, a record per se of Sabbath material. We only played, the first 8 Sabbath records, so we haven't gone and recorded any of it. But people do ask us all the time. I always think that no one would want to buy that from us, but people are always like, "Hey, do you have a CD?" So I've been toying with the idea of maybe recording a couple shows and doing like a live record, like kind of like, you know, bands would have done in the 70s,
Mhm.
in that like Grateful Dead Europe 72 kind of thing, where you record like 20 shows and then take the best of it and make a record out of it,
Oh, there you
you
go.
know?
Yeah. I'm just envisioning like the vinyl with the double sleeve that opens. You got two records in there, and there's you guys on the stage. Like, I'm just kind of picturing it now. That'd be pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Okay. Now we really have to do it.
Well, I want
You
to I
know,
want to sign one when you guys do. I want to sign one. All right.
we also do a lot of that stuff, like stuff that's not on the records. We do, we'll play, sometimes I'm happy, that jam that,
Yeah.
from the early 70s. Or, we do the end of Center of the Universe, and we'll jam that into another song, or we play, Sabracadabra into a drum solo, into Supernaut, into, another thing, like kind of like Sabbath did in the early 70s,
Yeah.
which they don't do anymore. Like when they got back together in the 90s and the 2000s, it was just kind of a straight reading of the songs from the
Everything's
records.
just cut. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
everything's cut out.
yeah.
Yeah. So now, what can the folks here that haven't seen you guys before? What can they expect from the Black Sabbitch live show?
Well, so last summer when we toured, and we did some East Coast shows. I don't think we made it. Did we make it to Albany last summer? I don't think we did, because it was kind of a, it was the middle of the Delta surge, and we were like,
Yeah.
a lot of venues were not even doing shows. We had booked that in that like beautiful moment where we all thought everything was going to be okay when everyone got vaccinated, and then suddenly everything fell apart again. And so we were like out
Yep.
there, like fingers crossed that we don't get sick, and just did a tour. But we did the 50th anniversary of Master of Reality and Volume 4. So we were doing 2 sets last summer, and we would play both those records in their entirety. And so a lot of that stuff right now is still in our sets too.
Mhm.
So we're probably going to play, a good hour and a half at least in Albany, and we're going to do stuff like that. We've been doing the last few shows. We've been doing, Wheels of Confusion, Into the Straightener. We do stuff that that you'd never hear Sabbath or probably anyone do, like Solitude. Where we do Changes, things that we do Planet Caravan. We do stuff that folks are generally not playing. But we're going to do a lot of Master Reality, a lot of Volume 4, but we're also still doing tons of Black Sabbath and Paranoid, and a lot of Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, a bunch of Sabotage, we even throw some Never Say Die in there, we're I won't be happy until we know every song. We play every song from all 8 records at some point. Yeah, when we go to the UK, and maybe we'll learn this before we're going to start doing it at sound checks. I think we're going to play a couple of songs from before they were Black Sabbath, like from the Earth days. Like when we play Birmingham, I think we're going to play Song for Jim maybe in Birmingham. I just
Yeah.
thought if we're going to play Birmingham, UK, we got to do like a really
Yeah.
cool
Something
thing
special.
that no one is expecting.
Yeah.
So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Please put that on YouTube. That's all I got to say is please put that on YouTube.
Yeah, well, hopefully someone will film it. Yeah, because I'll
So
be
as
in the
far
back.
as far as tour stories go, now this is I'm gonna pick your brain from in here. Do you have any interesting tour stories, good or bad, where if I said to you, like, what is the most interesting thing you've seen on tour? Can you just pop one out of your head quick? Do you have one that's like the most memorable to you?
Well, most memorable for sure. This is a story that won't get anybody in trouble, so it's nice. But most memorable for sure is when we were touring in Texas during Hurricane Harvey, I guess that was,
Mhm.
and we, there were gas lines everywhere, and it was like everybody was canceling all the shows and going home, and we were out there, and we were playing Houston. I think it was 2 days after the hurricane, and the shows all got canceled, and all the venues were closed, and we were in Dallas, I think, uh, somewhere in Texas. We had just played, and we we were like in West Texas heading east while the hurricane was coming, and the venue in Houston, the promoter canceled the show, and my agent called and said the show in Houston is canceled. And then I kind of knew the guy that owned the venue, and I sent him an email, and I was like, "Hey, we're close, and I hear that the Astros are coming back to play, and if the Astros can play, we can play." And he was like, "I totally want to do the show." And so we drove, like we're driving into Houston while everybody else is driving away. And we did a show there, like, and everybody who worked there and most of the people there had, just been through like some really horrific stuff. Like a lot of people had lost their houses, and
Sure.
the water had come up to the venue door this close, but didn't flood the venue. And
Wow.
and people were just overjoyed that we showed up,
That's
like,
awesome.
a bunch of like punk bands and all these super cool people canceled that week. And we were like, a bunch of chicks from LA, like, we're going, we're in, we're going, and so, that was it. It was that's one of those things where you're like scared and you don't know what's going to happen. I mean,
Mhm.
kind of similar to what happened last summer where we were like, should we go on tour? But we did it, and people were really happy that we were there. I mean, I think having played that show in Houston and made so many people happy um, is something that I'll never forget, for sure.
And they won't forget it either. That's
No,
that's
for sure. We have a huge fan base there now because of it. People, love us in that, at that venue and in that town.
awesome. So do you guys have a favorite venue to play, whether it's overseas or here? Do you have like a favorite club that you just when you go there, you're like, yeah, this is the shit.
Interesting, interesting. I'm trying to think where are we going on this tour coming up. Um, we're actually this weekend we're playing at Bottom of the Hill in San Francisco, which has been there forever and ever.
Mhm.
And we actually at the end of our summer tour last year we played a bunch of California shows, and the San Francisco show was just off the hook. It was the middle of the day. They do these Sunday afternoon barbecue shows there at the Bottom of the
Mhm.
Hill, and they've been doing them for like I don't know 25 years,
Oh, wow.
and it was like clubs in California had just reopened at that time because the restrictions were still really tight here, and you had to show proof of vaccination, you had to wear a mask, there was all this stuff happening, and we thought, we don't know who's going to show up. A lot of people were afraid to go out, and rightly so. And place was packed, and people were just so happy. Like I think most people, it was the first time they had been out, in 2 years or
Sure.
a year and a half, and it was it was one of my favorite shows we've played in a couple of years, and I'll say that is definitely one of our favorite places to play. Bottom of the Hill, and we'll be there this Sunday, uh, in 5 days. Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
So now let's talk about you for a second. When did you first get into music?
Well, so my dad was a doo-wop singer in the 50s and early 60s, and he made records for Paramount, and 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 he sang back up on things like Neil Sedaka and records like that.
Mhm.
But so he was a musician, and so his like doo-wop band would be like rehearsing in the basement of my house. I'm from New York, so there's no basements here in California.
Right.
Um, so and my mom was a huge music fan, had tons of records in the house, and so we would always be in the car, and my dad would be listening to at the time oldies radio,
Mhm.
which was because to listen to 50s music, but also that oldies radio would play like 60s music too. So I
Sure.
got super into like the Beatles, the Stones, and the Who by listening to oldies radio with my dad.
Mhm.
And I just from the time I was a little kid, I wanted to play the drums. I think probably because of Keith Moon, because of the Who, and I would go around with a tape recorder recording theme songs off the TV, um, and listen to them in my bedroom, like TV theme songs, because I was really into the drumming on them.
Sure.
And so my dad bought me a drum set when I was 12, I think.
Oh, wow.
And most, kids, especially girls, like you didn't have people weren't lucky enough to have a drum set in their house. Even
Right.
now, I teach a lot of young girls, and very few of them have a drum set in their house that their
Right.
parents like listen to them bash away on. And whenever I encounter a girl who has one, I'm always like slapping the parents on the back. Good boy. But yeah, so I started playing drums, when I was like 12, and a neighbor on my block turned me on the Black Sabbath, and I started playing to that first record. Like one of my earliest things to do
Yeah.
was play along to that record, and poorly, obviously at the time, but it really influenced who I was as a player. And then like a lot of kids in the 80s and 90s, I just started playing with my friends, you
Yeah.
know, um,
Yep.
and usually in every town, like at least then, everyone played guitar. You know, someone always played bass because they were the guitar player, but they got, you know, you got to play bass because I'm a better
Yeah.
guitar player than
Yep.
you.
Yep.
Someone always sang, but there weren't that many drummers. So, you
Yeah.
know, all through my life, I was in like 5 and 6 bands at a time because everyone needs a drummer.
Yeah. Exactly.
Um, yeah, so then I just started like making records and touring, and I was always in a million bands, and I never thought that the thing that people would know me the most for would be for playing Black Sabbath music, but it has that is kind of where my life has gone in the past decade. I still make original music and make records with people and write songs and that kind of stuff. But most of my touring and live performing these days comes with Black Sabbitch.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
So now, is drums your only instrument? Do you play
I
other?
play a little bit of I play a little bit of piano and
Yep.
keyboards,
Yeah.
but I play the tiniest bit of keys at our shows. Like we do changes. So Alice, my singer, will play the main piano part, and I'll play there's a mellotron part on there that I think Geezer
Yes.
originally played when they played it live. So I'll
Yep.
play Geezer's part, and we also will do we do Solitude, and I'll play the flute solo on a piano, like
Oh,
on a synthesizer.
sure.
Yeah, and we've done Laguna Sunrise, and I'll
Mhm.
play those string section parts on
Oh, cool.
keys. So, but for the most part, I'm a drummer. I would never insult real keyboard players by saying that I'm a keyboard player, but
Right.
I know where the notes are. You know what
You
I mean?
dabble.
Yeah, yeah.
So now, aside from Sabbath, of course, um, what are some of your other musical influences? I know you talk Beatles
Um,
and stuff like that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think there's a picture of the Beatles right behind me there.
Yep. Yep.
Um, I mean, the 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 band that I've seen most in my life, strangely enough, for someone who plays in what people consider to be a metal band, is the Grateful Dead. I'm a huge Grateful Dead fan, um, and because I think that they share that same swing. Bill
Yeah.
Kreutzmann and Bill Ward both have that shuffle, like in
Hmm.
just about everything they play,
Sure.
and I'm a big fan of that. That shuffle. I listen to a lot of '70s R&B. Um, so I really like that kind of playing the real swing sound
Sure.
of drumming. So
Mhm.
when I was a kid, the things that I absolutely adored were Elton John, The Who, The Stones, The Beatles, Aerosmith, like a lot of like what people call towny rock these days.
Right.
Like
Right. Right.
70s, hair rock, but not metal. I never really became a metal head. The only bands that I say that I really enjoy is early Judas Priest and
Hmm.
early Iron Maiden. I really can sit with that groove. And then of course, obviously Sabbath.
Sure.
Um, but I really am into '70s, swinging heavy rock like Mountain, things like that. Bands that really, I think like the Godfathers of stoner rock really is
Oh, there you go.
where my love lies. People that could jam. It all goes back, I guess, to Cream and Jimi Hendrix.
Hmm.
Those kind of like you know look at the ground, bang your head up and down,
Oh yeah.
and
Yep.
just play that song for 15 minutes.
There you go.
Those are my people.
I love it. Now, did you always want to be a musician? Did you ever want to be anything else?
When I was a little kid, the two things that really turned me on were music and film, and I really kind of wanted to be, a drummer or a filmmaker, and I kind of am both of those things now. I went to see the Who, The Kids Are All Right documentary when I was really little because I was a huge Who fan, and I thought the way they presented the band just made me love them so much that I wanted to do that. So now, other than playing music for a living, I direct mostly um, live music performances. So I work currently. I have a series that I direct at KCRW, which is a big radio station here,
Mhm.
where we film bands doing live performances for the station. So like last week, I did the band Wet Leg. You know who they are? They're like the big thing at the moment.
I've heard the name. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
Shay is long. I've done a lot of that recently. I did Wet Leg, I did Spoon, Gabriel's, Courtney Barnett. I do a lot of that kind of stuff now.
Mhm.
So those are the two things that I do with my life, and I also direct like a live cabaret show here in Los Angeles that
Oh,
tours a
cool.
lot. So yeah, but those are the two things I always wanted to do, and thankfully I get to do them. Like,
That's
and
awesome.
people pay me for it.
That's not a bad thing either, right? That's
Strangely,
a bonus. Yeah, right.
I found people stupid enough to give me money to do this. Yeah.
So, I mean, I've taken like way too much of your time as it is now, and I definitely appreciate you stopping by. Do you have anything else you want to say to the folks before we?
No, just, come out to our show. Even if you're a Sabbath fan, I promise you, you will absolutely adore the band. If you just like hard rock or metal, I'm sure you're still gonna love it. If you just want to see a good rock band, you'll absolutely dig it. May 6th at Empire Underground, and any place else on the East Coast. I mean, look for us. We're going to be in New York City. We're going to be in Pennsylvania and Rhode Island and playing in Ontario, Canada. I'm missing a bunch of places, but if you go to blacksabbitch.com or look for us on Facebook or Instagram, just look for Black Sabbitch. You can find us. There's tons of our videos on YouTube that you can find as well. And yeah, thanks for listening to me talk.
No,
Yeah.
it's been great for sure, and that's what I was going to say too. Is this does go further than just our area, so you guys check your local venues for when they're coming around, and you guys have to go see them. I can't wait. I would like to shake your hand in person and say hello instead of doing this whole
Yeah,
internet
well,
thing.
I'll see you at the show.
Yeah, for sure. So you
Okay.
guys can see Angie and the rest of the band, not ladies, band, Black Sabbitch. They're going to be locally here at Empire Underground, May 6th. Doors at 7 p.m. Everybody else, check your local venues, like I said, to see when they're going to be in your area. Angie, you've been absolutely amazing. I appreciate you stopping by, and I look forward to seeing you in Albany.
Yeah, thanks for having us on. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good
Take
day.
care. Bye.
Angie Scarpa, everybody.